That's something I hope I can continue to do for many years to come. So I think that covers it. And just to give a shout out to my parents, mom, Christy, dad, Jared, my younger brother, Lee, and my grandparents, Betty and Clayton, and Barb and Anthony for their support. I know they're watching. They'll be tuning into this episode. So very grateful for them, especially my mom, Christy, for all the financial support she's given me through the years.
Fantastic mission. And that's so amazing that this is not about getting all the calls right, great mechanics, knowing every rule. That's obviously part of the success of officiating, but educating, elevating, exciting is that's a bigger picture that I think we all said it can be translated to life. And what I would say is that officiating absolutely can, the things you learn and the experiences you have and the people you meet and the connections you make can truly like make your life better.
Dana, I think it's really easy to balance, especially when you love everything that you're doing. And I think that it's definitely a busy schedule, as you mentioned, with being a student still in high school. I just finished running cross country in the fall, and I did that for my entire junior and senior years of high school. And then I playing baseball right now in the spring. And then, like you said too, drama really takes over during those winter months and kind of blends into the springtime of the year with baseball as well. And then, of course, with my faith and in the church especially is something that I really try to value and make sure that I'm giving time towards that. But I think that the most important thing I've learned through the years of keeping such a busy schedule is number one, I love to be busy, and number two, that you really have to be good when it comes to time management, especially when it comes to scheduling.
I think it all comes down to time management and being a professional at that, besides being the best you can be when you put on the stripes, the preparation that goes into it. You've got to find the balance between, you're going to try to eat 3 square meals a day. You're going to try to get 8 hours of sleep every night. It all comes down to daily time management and making the best of the time that you have. And like you said, Dana, if you say no a couple times, it's going to give you more time to do all the right things and focus a little bit more on what needs to be done when. And it's like stepping on the field. We're told to start perfect. So, you walk out on the field for the opening kickoff, and then your grade is determined by everything you do wrong between the start of the game and the end of the game. And, you've got to maintain things at the high level. And that takes a lot of time management. It takes a lot of focus. It takes a lot of concentration. And that's not something that you pick up overnight.
And now, Season 2, Episode 2, Letter B, Balance. Join host Dana Pappas with special guests Mark Baltz, Kris Loving Sr., and Luke Bowers on the From A to Zebra podcast.
Welcome back to the From A to Zebra podcast. I'm Dana Pappas. My co-host Nana Costa can't be with us for this episode, so I'm going to go solo, but not actually, because we've got 3 guests with us today. On this second episode of Season 2, we're talking about an important aspect of officiating, regardless of the level officials work. From youth to high school to college to professional officiating, today's topic is critical to the success of officials. On this episode, we'll be covering the letter B, and we're talking about balance. Our guests today are coming to us representing different stages of officiating with great perspective on this topic. We're excited again to welcome 3 guests to the From A to Zebra podcast, all with different experiences in officiating. First, we have retired NFL official Mark Baltz. We have current college football official Kris Loving, and a 3-sport high school official Luke Bowers. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thanks, Dana. Nice to be here.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, everyone, thanks
Dana.
for
It's a
having me.
pleasure.
Great having you all. Before we get started talking about balance, could you each tell us just a little bit about your officiating journey, how you got started, where did you go to get to where you are now? And we're going to start with Mark and then Kris and then Luke. So Mr. Baltz, if you'll kick us off.
Well, I've got to turn on my memory button since I started such a long time ago and make sure my Prevagen is still working. But I started over 60 years ago in high school gym classes. My high school coach, athletic director, phys ed teacher, he let us gym leaders referee the gym classes, threw me a whistle one day and said, "Here, I'm going to go in and read the newspaper, you referee what's going on and all this good stuff. And I ended up doing that for the second semester of my senior year. And he came up to me at the end of my senior year and said, "Hey, you kind of look like you knew what you were doing out there this spring." He says, "You ever think about refereeing?" And I said, "The way you treat officials, why would I ever want to do that?" And he said, "Well," he says, "that's just me." He says, "Don't take anything from me." But he was also a high school football and basketball official himself. And he knew I was going to go to school at Ohio University where they taught an officiating class, which he himself took. And he says, "I can get you in the class." And I says, "Boy, I'm not sure." I said, "I'm not sure officiating something that I would really like." And he said, "Well, you're going to Ohio U. It's a party school. Just go take the class. And if nothing else, it's good beer money." Well, that's all he had to say. And the rest is history. I went there, took the class, got my license, came back. He helped me immensely over in Ohio where I grew up, getting started so I didn't have to start at the youth level. I got pretty much high school JV and varsity games right out of the chute, which you really got to be fortunate, as Kris knows, to be able to start at that level. And maybe Luke does too. But anyway, I got started. Then I went through the real tough job that officials have to endure, and that is relocation. After college, I got out of college. I'd refereed intramurals in college and really was enjoying my officiating. I came back home on the weekends and got to referee with my mentor. But then I relocated after college with my new job to the state of Indiana, where I currently reside. But I crossed the state line from where football is king to where basketball is king. And boy, what a resurrection that was. That probably put me in stumbling territory for a couple years until I could regroup and get reestablished. And from then on, I was very fortunate in Indiana to have a great high school career of 43 years of high school basketball, refereed small college men's and women's basketball. And that's also where my football career began to grow. High school, state finals, small college. Then I moved into the Mid-American, then the Big Ten, just like Kris. And 1989, the NFL came knocking on my door, and the rest is history. So a long ride. It is a journey. It's not a sprint, which is something that a lot of officials have to learn. And that's a tough thing to learn because everybody wants the instant gratification in today's world. And boy, that just doesn't work in officiating. There's no substitute in this racket for experience.
All right, Kris.
Thanks for sharing that, Mark. I have not been officiating for 60 years, but I
Lucky you.
got into it honestly for very vain reasons, just to make extra money and kind of, fun exercise, if you will. I had no aspirations of even getting where I'm at now. I had no big time vision of anything, but I played basketball, so I started with that and enjoyed it. Was kind of like Mark, working my way up and stuff. And then somehow got roped into trying football, a sport I never played. I loved watching, but never played, didn't know the rules and the ins and outs of it from that standpoint. But just something drew me to give it a try and fell in love with it the first day. The first camp I went to was like, wow, this is different. And was blessed to start with high school and youth level. And I was, very rare, had a unique opportunity to move quickly, more quickly than normal. Worked a couple of years of high school and then worked in the Missouri Valley Conference for 2 years, also in the MAC for 2 years, and then the Big Ten. Just completed my third year. Also, this is my third year working spring pro football, which is now United Football League. And for also very fortunate to be on the NFL development program. So a potential to follow Mark's footsteps one day, potentially. But as he said, one big word is journey. It's been a fantastic journey, a lot of fun, and I know we'll get more into that later, but been blessed. So I'm about 10 years in overall with both sports and hoping for more.
Fantastic, and congratulations on the NFL spring, everything that you're doing there. That's awesome, Kris. All right, Luke, last but not least.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for sharing those stories. And Dana, it's a true honor being on the podcast here today. So Thank you for having me on. Absolutely. My name is Luke Bowers. I'm 18 years old, a senior in high school from Confluence, Pennsylvania, and I've practically grown up as a sports fanatic, playing baseball and basketball from a very young age. And I think I always tell people from as long as I can remember, I always wanted to be a student of the game, especially when it came to the rules side of things. And I always wanted to try to be the best possible I could, not only for myself when I was playing, but also to a leader to my teammates. So I think that guided me to really wanting to become connected to the rules side when it came to playing. So when I was actually in second grade, I picked up the whistle and refereed my first basketball game with our local school alumni tournament that they had, and truly blessed for that opportunity. I say from the moment I put on the stripes, I had that hook, and I continued officiating basketball for numerous years throughout my age in the elementary system, and I continued playing baseball and basketball during that time. And by the time I got to sixth grade, I decided that I also wanted to try to pursue umpiring baseball. So through a connection, we went to a West Virginia Black Bears game in 2019. Had the privilege of meeting two minor league umpires, Joe Belangio and Paul Romer. They directed us to try to pursue some different ideas. Joe Belangio went on to have a upstate umpires camp in Greenville, South Carolina, in the fall of 2020. So I went there with my family, my mother Christy and my younger brother Lee, and I did my first professional umpire training with so many great individuals who are involved and all different levels of professional baseball. So that really kick-started my journey with umpiring baseball. Came back home, started working little league games with the baseball side of things, continued progressing with basketball, working alumni games, elementary, some higher up, even into some summer leagues that included, those a little bit older age kids. And then I found myself there in the junior high where I was wanting to progress, but there wasn't so many opportunities here locally, living in a really rural area in Pennsylvania, to pursue such opportunities. So ended up getting into contact with the PIAA, and so we started to brainstorm specifically with our district female representative, Audrey Hall. And I said to her, I said, Audrey, I said, I really want to officiate. I said, the PIAA, our state conference, I think is a really good opportunity to maybe try to bridge that gap and do something, especially for us student athletes. So Audrey said, well, we're going to do it and we're going to make it happen. And sure enough, through Pat Gebhardt, the PIAA board of directors, and really advocating across the state, especially for my passion and journey in officiating, we were able to do so. So we actually debuted the junior officials program. It's going on 3 years now this fall. I became involved in that. I was the first certified junior official in the state of Pennsylvania. I got certified initially for basketball. Shortly after, went on to pursue for baseball and volleyball. And what the junior officials program is here in MPA is it gives the opportunity to sophomores, juniors, and seniors in high school the chance to officiate junior high sports after you follow through with taking the test and gaining those clearances and then going on to join the chapter. So for me, I found that adding on volleyball was a really neat opportunity, especially since we have such few officials in my area doing volleyball. And it's just been a true blessing to pursue each of those endeavors and really connect to that family unit that is so prevalent in the officiating community. And just very thankful for all the support I've received too, especially with my family unit and fellow officials from all walks of life across the game. After graduation, I look forward to pursuing a double major in sport management and physical education with a minor in theater, and then going on to either professional umpire school and or to potentially become a Division I basketball official.
Luke, I have to say, as you were speaking, you said two things that I got goosebumps. The first was you started officiating in second grade, which is amazing. And the second was that you're the first junior official there to be certified in Pennsylvania. And for those who are listening, I actually got to meet Luke last year at the PIAA state conference and immediately was just like, oh my gosh, like you meet Luke and you just get pumped up because of his enthusiasm. And as Nate and I were coming up with podcast guests, I knew that Luke had to be somebody that was going to be on the show because wow. And Kris, I was able to meet and we had about a 2 hour long conversation in my office one day, and just so much good that he's doing. And of course, Mark with 60 years of experience and now his involvement in ref reps. The three guests that we have on this show are just amazing. And everybody, all three of you have given so much. Luke already. That's amazing. But as I was thinking about this particular episode, I just thought the mix of what you all have done and where you are in your careers would be really cool to talk about balance in officiating. So because of that, we're just going to jump in. So Luke, you mentioned you're currently a high school senior. You're not only a three-sport official, but you're also a student athlete. You participate in drama, and I know you're active in your church. How do you balance officiating with all of these other activities and staying on top of your schoolwork? Because that sounds like a lot.
So yeah, Dana, I think it's really easy to balance, especially when you love everything that you're doing. And I think that it's definitely a busy schedule, as you mentioned, with being a student still in high school. I just finished running cross country in the fall, and I did that for my entire junior and senior years of high school. And then I playing baseball right now in the spring. And then, like you said too, drama really takes over during those winter months and kind of blends into the spring time of the year with baseball as well. And then, of course, with my faith and in the church especially, is something that I really try to value and make sure that I'm giving time towards that. But I think that the most important thing I've learned through the years of keeping such a busy schedule is number one, I love to be busy, and number two, that you really have to be good when it comes to time management, especially when it comes to scheduling. So I'm the type of person that is really detailed when it comes to both of those things. And so that definitely helps. So I always keep track on my phone through the Arbiter system. Actually, I have everything in there day to day, sometimes even down to the minute, depending on the week. And that really helps me keep on track and make sure I'm devoting my time equally to each of those endeavors. And I think by doing that, I'm able to still pursue all those interests, especially when I'm able to do so in such a fun way, and also make sure that I'm allowing time for myself to not only plan ahead accordingly, but also make sure that I'm giving 100% to each of those endeavors that I take on. So, and I mean, especially when it comes to school too, I also take dual enrollment classes through a local community college and other institutions. So upon graduating high school, I'll finish up with 60 credits that will hopefully transfer into, the four-year university like West Virginia University, which I'm planning to attend. And so by doing that, I think it's also given me the opportunity to even branch out and connect, with that local community college, especially. I've been able to perform in the performing arts there and just kind of give back to a different community outside of my local school district, where I'm actively involved in a variety of different of our clubs and organizations. I serve as, the National Honor Society president, student council president, drama club president, the list goes on. So I think though that the biggest thing too that I try to tell my fellow classmates or community members or who it might be, because it's a question I get a lot when it comes to balance specifically, is I just try to tell them that, whenever you take on those responsibilities, it's really important. I find that you're taking on that in such a leadership capacity where you're able to, like I mentioned previously, be able to dedicate the time to do so equally to all those endeavors.
That's amazing, Luke. And I think as you progress through life and, get into work and all of that, you're going to be doing pretty well because you've got the balance thing. You're balancing a lot. And to hear all of I mean, I only knew a portion of what you were doing. I had no idea you were doing dual enrollment classes and all of that. So just to hear that time commitment and the fact that you're staying on top of all of it and doing well. I mean, National Honor Society president, obviously you've got good grades too, so you're managing it well, and that's good. That's going to bode well for you as you get to be all of our ages. So that's outstanding. So Kris, you are currently a college football official. You're the founder of a nonprofit called Save Our Sports. You're very active with Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and you have a wife and children. So how do you find balance between officiating and all of those really important other commitments in your life?
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's difficult. I commend Luke and other young people that get into this before they start a family because you just mentioned it'll be a great asset. It's almost like you're planning, you're preparing for that ahead of time. When you start the family, you've already kind of figured out what time officiating needs and money and travel and all that. I didn't. I was married and had a child first before officiating. So some of my learning was like on the fly. Certainly I made mistakes, but what really helped me truly was I mentioned earlier that my entry into officiating was pretty vain, pretty superficial. But a couple of years into it, I actually found my purpose in officiating. And what I found was that officiating was a ministry for me. I've been involved in ministry formally in the church many years before officiating, and God shifted my calling to do it more literally on the field or in the field or on the court. And so once I realized my purpose was ministry focused, mission focused, then I actually was able to prioritize things better and actually combine a lot of what I was doing works very well together. So, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, Save Our Sports, things I am doing at my local church, like all those things work very well together. And so it helps me balance by putting things, leveraging and collaborating with all the wonderful things I'm doing. They're not siloed. A lot of them work together. And then having a family that is very supportive, both by encouraging me, by coming with me to games and camps and traveling with me, watching me on TV, praying for me, supporting me every way they can helps, because without it, Mark can attest, we've seen and know lots of families that have been destroyed because of officiating, because of lack of balance and lack of priority. But I've been blessed to get good advice early on, including your family in this journey as much as you can. We literally today, hour and a half, we just got back from Detroit where I had a UFL game and my family came with me. We just hung out in the hotel and went to the pool and hung out with friends in the area, and we just made it a family trip and a business trip. So yeah, just I would say finding purpose and why you're doing it, prioritizing. If you do have a family, if you do have a career, if you do have other hobbies and interests, and then hopefully those things can work together in some way. That's balance for me.
And Kris, I know you and I have talked about it before, but the fact that you have used officiating as part of the ministry for you, I think is just absolutely incredible. And the things that you've done with FCA and kind of bringing that into the fold of officiating has been just a really amazing aspect that you've taken officiating in. And I think that's so special. And the fact that it shifted for you. You went from, like you said, something that was not this something bigger than you really, and then you've made it into something that that is Christ-centered, and that you found this other purpose in it is just absolutely incredible. So I appreciate you kind of sharing your story with us on that. That's really nice.
Thank you.
So, all right, Mr. Baltz. So you worked obviously a long time as a football official. You made it all the way to the NFL, and you worked as a high school basketball official as well as small college. So you have a family, you have a career outside of officiating, and to this day, you're still deeply involved in officiating as a CFO of Ref Reps, and you serve on the Sports Officials Care board of directors. So you've got a lot going on still, and you're supposed to be retired. So I think you're not very good at being retired. I'm just going to tell you that. But how have you, over the 60-year career, how have you been able to really balance all of your responsibilities throughout your career?
I think everybody that you've got on the call, you've got two great people and me that kind of get it, but we all get it in a little bit different way. But I understand that Luke started at a very young age, much younger than me, but not much, but he's on the right track, but he's still got a long way to go, but he's doing all the right things. Kris, on the other hand, started officiating first, which I did too before I really got married and had a family and everything. But 60 years. My wife and I have been married as of last month, 56 years, which we're real proud of. But there does have to be that balance, and it's a prioritization. From what I understand, Luke's involved in his church. I know all about Kris's background and all the great things he's doing, but even for an old goat like me, there's still a picture in my home right above my TV that says faith, family, and football. And those people that follow that and don't get the football before the other two, which, as Kris has seen and mentioned over the years, we've seen a lot of our fellow officials, great officials, fall by the wayside for not having those priorities and having that balance that you're talking about this evening. So we're all three very fortunate in that, and would love to talk to anybody and encourage anybody that wants to hear that message. Kris is preaching it all the time. I speak for my lunch quite a bit, all the service organizations around central Indiana and pretty much convey the same message, but they want to talk about all the war stories. But there's really got to be that balance. And that comes from time management, all the other things that come into play. I was in the business world my whole life, retired from officiating, but as you mentioned, Dana, I'm still in the business world with reps. When you get to be my age and you have all of that experience, you got to do something with it. I mean, you got to give back. Officiating is really hurting, as you well know. We've got a tremendous shortage, and I think the last 20, 25 years of my life and the last 15 years of my career, I really spent trying to give back, trying to recruit. Then we get hit with COVID. Then we get hit with poor sportsmanship, and we see young officials exiting out the door. We just got to stop that from happening. We've got to train them better. We got to get them off on the right foot, which reps I think is doing a good job of, as are other people around the country and other groups. Where the message is getting out there thanks to the National Federation and the NCAA and everybody else. I don't think it's too little, too late, but we've got a lot of work to do. But still getting that message out there that officiating is just an avocation. It's a great way to make a little extra money, as Kris said. But at the end of the day, that's not what it's all about. It's the camaraderie, it's the fellowship. The NFLRA is having their annual spring meeting this weekend in Los Angeles, and I got 3 phone calls this morning from 3 of my fellow former NFL officials who are out there with where the hell are you? Which, to have that camaraderie, I haven't seen some of them for 20 years. We went last year. You can't go every year. Again, priorities, other things come first. Life happens. Just don't let life stomp all over your officiating career. Keep your ducks lined up. Plan ahead. It's all about prioritizing what's really important to you in life. And yeah, my family is proud of me. I tell the story all the time. My wife used to spend Thanksgiving Day alone, she says, and it's really sad to sit at home and eat turkey by myself, and then I have to turn on TV because I worked 8 Thanksgiving Day games. She said I had to turn on TV and watch a turkey. We kept it jovial and had a good time. But as Kris knows, the Big Ten and some of your officiating, they encourage your spouses and your family to get involved. But once you get to the NFL, that you can only take your wife once or twice a year. I always told my wife she'd love Green Bay and Buffalo, but she chose to go to Miami and San Diego instead. So she's pretty smart. I give her credit for that. No, it's all about balance. It's all about priorities, having the faith. And really, there's times in your career where you got to really rely on that faith, as Kris can attest. And I know he preaches that quite a bit. We all have to lean on that altar being that we all believe in to really help us along, because sometimes we get knocked down and it's tough getting back up. So we've got to have that hand reaching down for us, and the support is all part of the balance picture. So it's a great topic. When I first saw it, balance, what the heck does she want us to talk about balance? But then, like I said, my prevision kicked in and the light bulb went on, and I finally figured it out. So good choice of words, Dana.
Thanks. You thought I was going to give you guys like some sort of a physical test. No, we're not doing that, like a balance beam. No, I wasn't going to go there. We were going to keep it with the balance of things.
You can call me Mark.
But you won't. I mean,
Appreciate that.
sometimes I'm really good at putting together panels of guests. I don't want to pat myself on the back, but I mean, kind of as an aside, when I was putting this particular topic together, the 3 of you were such a perfect fit because I knew the different ranges in your skill levels and your where you've been, but I also knew that each of you has that faith aspect. So I didn't even go there in the questions because I knew it would go there organically. So it's been awesome. So we'll jump back into the questions. Ed, great point. So this is kind of an extension of the last question to kind of give our advice to our listeners. It's one thing to balance what you're doing, but how do you manage doing everything that you do at such a high level so that you're not sacrificing quality in any one area of your life? Because I know, in my previous role when I was at the New Mexico office, I was working on officials and I was in charge of music events and student leadership advisory, and I had all these different things going on. And I was always terrified that I was going to do everything kind of well, but nothing really well. And that bothered me because I never wanted to sacrifice quality. So how do you do everything at a high level so that you're not sacrificing that quality? And this is for all three of you. We're gonna start with Kris this time. I'm gonna mix it up.
Yeah, that's a very, very great question. Um, and I would say, some interviews will ask you, what's your greatest weakness? What's your greatest strength? I think one of my weaknesses that is a strength too, but can be a weakness is that I'm a 100 or 0 person. Like, I just don't do well if I'm not 100% like all the way in. I want to be the best at it. I want to be excellent every day. Like, I just personally just don't do well if I'm not there. And that could be challenging because, like, we only have so many hours in the day and so much energy and strength. And so I would say for me, it's knowing when to say no, knowing when to pull back and maybe pause some things so that you can be 100% and strive for excellence. For example, for me, obviously during the football season, I'm traveling a lot on the weekends. I'm preparing during the week. I'm pretty locked in. But in the off season, that's when I really, really, really am intentional about being at home and not finding other things to do that will take me away because I've missed enough during certain parts of the year. And so I certainly don't put the family on the back burner, but there are times when I can give them more attention, more time, and more of me. And there's times when they understand that I may have to be physically away at other times. And so just knowing when to emphasize one area and maybe lower one to an extent, and then when this one's down, you can just kind of swap where you spend the majority of your time and energy without negating anything fully. Luke, I'm sure you've probably learned by now, especially doing multiple sports, that you don't really have an off season. I mean, there's either in season or preseason. So you never just throw the rule book away. You never just stop thinking or stop training or stop practicing or getting better, but you may dial it down some. Like, it may not be as time consuming, as intense as certain parts of the year as others. And then that's when you can then use that time and energy and effort on the other things that are just as important that you maybe couldn't give that same time to. And I mentioned already, you got to have the support of those people and places and things that are sharing you. So if you have a career, if you have, a boss, if you have your family, if you have like church or other hobbies or clubs or nonprofits you're a part of, be honest, be transparent with everybody on what you're doing and make sure everybody's aligned so that they're okay with you being maybe less present during this time and more present during that time. And if everyone and everything can work together, you got balance and you can have good success.
That was a great answer. I really appreciate that because I think that part of being transparent and being honest with everybody and letting people know kind of all the things that you have your hands in, and letting people know that it's all important to you. So I think that, building that support system, because when we talk about that support, we generally think of the people that are in our house, but it's so much bigger than that. It is your boss, it's your friends, it's your family, it's your crew, it's everybody that's involved that you really associate with. And I think that you made some great points, Kris, as far as making sure that you're just upfront with everyone about it so that they know, if you're a ghost for 4 months, it's because it's football season, or, wherever the case may be. So I think that's really a great point. So Mark, we're going to kick it to you now.
I'll just second a lot of what Kris said. And I think it comes down to, what you got going on in your life. And when Kris made a couple points to, being able to do everything you do, he and I both know tons of people who haven't had the opportunity to do what we do, yet they're great officials, but they're in a situation where their job, their employer, or whatever won't allow them to be away. Take that extra time off that you need to, for the weekend here or the weekend there. Some of the corporate America, have no respect for what you do, and it's all about your job. And that really makes it tough on a lot of young people that are off in the world a little bit older than Luke is, but things that he's going to have to think about going forward. Kris is basically self-employed. I'm self-employed now, but I worked in corporate America for the longest time before I became, an independent manufacturer's rep. But again, it all comes back to managing that time and allocating, the time that you need to dedicate to officiating, because you're not going to make it in officiating if you don't dedicate the time to that just as well as you do your job and everything else. So time management becomes so important, and the family's got to be at the top of that list. And then you start down and prioritize, what's next and what's next. And you're going to get to the point where, early in life, you're going to find out, some things that you really love doing. If you want to continue this other path, you're going to have to let go, because you're not going to be successful. As Kris said, you're striving for perfection. And Jerry Seaman said, you're in the only avocation in the world where you're told to start perfect and then try to improve, which we all know is humanly impossible. But as we've all learned in officiating, as long as you're striving for that excellence and the bar is held high, as long as you're striving for that, you're always going to be excellent at what you do. And the same thing goes over into life, which just adds to your word balance again. If you take those same principles that Kris and I apply, and Luke will be applying in his officiating career, if you take those into the rest of your life with everything else you do, you can't help but succeed. So being able to balance everything, not just the officiating, but you put everything in your life in perspective, and whether it's your religion and your family and your avocation and what you want to do, your kids, you want to be involved with your kids. My kids, neither one were in athletics, but they were in show choir and a lot of other activities, and thank God they went all over the country performing in a show choir when football or basketball wasn't in season. So I got to be involved in that too. So things work out for a reason, hopefully in most cases all the right reasons, but it all comes back to you, the official, the individual, the family man, the father, to make it happen. You're the instigator. You're the primary focal point. You're the one that's really got to sacrifice to make it work. And it's not about, every Sunday on national TV or whatever, and then someone calling you on Monday wanting to complain about a call that you made. And my coach that got me started one year called me after a Sunday football game, and he started in on me on Monday. And I said, wait a minute. Before you go any further, I just want you to know one thing. It's all your fault. And he immediately changed the subject and got back to our good old friendship time. So somebody else got me started. I made the best of it. I think I did all right. And, now I'm just trying to make it better for everybody else. But again, that takes time. It takes time to do what I'm doing now with reps, just like, Kris's ministry and everything he's doing, Save Our Sports, and, all good stuff, Dana, that all help you, help us as our officiating family. This is really a unique group of people, and you and I are on a couple other boards, Dana, and know a lot of people that have the same messages and are on the same page, and we're all on the same book, and we're all doing this for all the right reasons. And I think that's great.
Absolutely. And Luke, we're going to have you wrap up this question. I cannot wait to hear your answer because of your overflowing plate of activities, athletics, the college courses I didn't even know you were taking, and homework, because you got to do homework at some point. So the question's to you now, sir.
Well, that's tough to follow up hearing those, such excellent points by both Kris and Mark, and really good words of wisdom. I think for any of the listeners that are, hearing this podcast, no matter the age, so much advice to be taken away from what they addressed, and I couldn't agree more with all those points. And even some things I think Mark mentioned that stood out to me really that I look forward to continuing to develop in, when it comes to my young career in officiating. And I think one of the biggest things that helps me is, another word is focus. I think I always have to be focused. And that's not always, it doesn't always mean you have to be focused in the moment about what you're doing, but you have to be focused about what's to come in the future and maybe what's already passed too, to take that and learn no matter what the endeavor is. When it comes to officiating, especially, I think what makes a great official starts long before you ever enter onto the court or the playing field. And in order to be successful when you get out there, you have to set yourself up ahead of time to make sure you're in the position to, succeed on the floor and be a great partner to, your teammates of officials that are working alongside you. So I think that by being focused, that's one of the biggest points. And I think sometimes you have to say no. I've learned that early on when I was in high school, I wanted to be involved in everything, and it felt as times that I was really not giving 100%. I mean, Kris mentioned that he's the type of person that loves to give 100% and really doesn't do well when it's below that bar. And I can relate to a lot what he's saying because you know what? Maybe sometimes you don't even see it directly, but those around you in whatever organizations or involvement and experiences that you're pursuing, those other people might be taking away, and maybe now they're suffering as a result of your commitments, but you're not really giving yourself fully to what you committed to. So sometimes you have to say no, and sometimes you have to make the right call, even when you're not officiating, to help those around you and those other endeavors. So I think it's really important to be mindful of that when you're taking on different responsibility roles, or even when you're involved. And then I think the third point that I want to make is when you find people that are passionate about what you enjoy doing, goes a really long way. I've been blessed to be part of so many different organizations, especially when it comes to giving back with community service. I find some of those to be the most fun opportunities to pursue because you're working together with individuals that are there for one goal, whatever that may be, but you're finding a way to come together. And when it comes to community service, for example, you're coming together for a common goal to give back to those around you. And so, that goes right hand in hand with officiating. When you're officiating, you're working together with people that also love the sports dynamic and are giving back to those student athletes and members of the game, and that we've all personally been touched a bit by some capacity. And even more so in my church, having that Christian faith and it being my rock and all that I do really is the true motivator and pusher through the good and the bad. Whether I'm having to rely on my devotion to the Bible or Sunday worship, or coming together, with my other youth group members to really be successful in all that I do and find, just the love that's truly there and, do things through Christ that's given me the ability to be able to do so many different things and just to try to make sure I'm prioritizing that. And I'll conclude one of the things that one of my mentors told me when I first got started with the junior officials program. He said, one thing that you might want to consider that I do is I take one night off a week to really dedicate myself to my family or my church. And that's something that I've taken upon and I found really useful. No matter the season, when it comes to officiating for me, I always schedule 1 week off, one day off during that week to really dedicate myself to whether it's a family gathering or whether it's a church service, or even if it's just staying home that night and maybe just enjoying a night off with, my immediate family for, a meal or something. And I think it's important, both of the other members, Kris and Mark mentioned, it comes back to prioritizing. So I think you got to find ways, even when it's busy, even when you're maxed out, to make sure that you're incorporating all those, especially when you start at the top, and make sure you're working.
All three of those were outstanding answers from all three guests. And Luke, you at 18 figured out something that took me probably 48 years to learn, and that is saying no. Because when you love something, you want to do so much for it. And people will ask you, do you want to be on this board? Do you want to be on that board? And you're yes, 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 yes. And then you're just like, what have I done? And then you find yourselves overly committed. And that's not a good place to be. So the fact that you've already learned that, don't forget that the saying no, because sometimes you have to, and it's hard. The three of you, the three guests on this show, I know Nate, my co-host, who's not on this episode, but myself, we want to do so much in officiating that it's so hard to say no to somebody. But then we also realize if I want to do a good job at it, I have to learn when to step back as well. So that was a really good point. So as we talk through this, what do you all find to be the most challenging aspect of finding and achieving balance with officiating and everything else? So you've given great answers and insight into how do you do it and how do you maintain this high level, but what's the biggest challenge for you? We'll start with Mark this time.
I think it all comes down to time management and being a professional at that, besides being the best you can be when you put on the stripes. So the preparation that goes into it, you've got to find the balance between, you're going to try to eat 3 square meals a day. You're going to try to get 8 hours of sleep every night. It all comes down to daily time management and making the best of the time that you have. And like you said, Dana, if you say no a couple times, it's going to give you more time to do all the right things and focus a little bit more on what needs to be done when. And it's like stepping on the field. We're told to start perfect. So, you walk out on the field for the opening kickoff, and then your grade is determined by everything you do wrong between the start of the game and the end of the game. And, you've got to maintain things at the high level. And that takes a lot of time management. It takes a lot of focus. It takes a lot of concentration. And that's not something that you pick up overnight. And that's probably a very strong attribute of the better officials in the country today, coupled with experience. There's no substitute in this racket for experience. So stop and enjoy the ride, smell the roses along the way, but learn how to be a good time manager, know where you've got to be when, become fully aware of all of your responsibilities. And Kris is learning this now. There's more and more responsibilities with every level that you move up that officiating ladder. Going out on Friday nights and trying to work a high school game, and then going out with your buddies and having a beer and having a pizza and say, see you next week. Then all of a sudden you get into constructive criticism after each game and film breakdown, and you're striving to get better. You're striving for perfection. But you got to also be able to throw that in your, Kris said he got back today from his ball game. Well, I don't know what type of post-game analysis they're doing in the UFL, but I'm sure there's some. But at every level, you've got to allow time for that now, the feedback, the reaction to the feedback. But all that is where am I going to put that in the hopper? What time am I going to do that? And if you're structured properly, you will find all the right times to do that. If not, you're going to be finding yourself doing it at 3 o'clock in the morning. You're catching your tail, you're running all over the place, and the next thing you know, you're going the wrong direction. So time management and becomes very important. And then the word again, balance. Balancing that time is probably the most important thing you're going to do. And you'll get better at it with time. You're not going to be a pro at it overnight. You're going to be an overload. And you're going to get to a point, like evidently Luke just said, at a young age. And if he's learning the fact that, hey, it's time to say no to some of this stuff at that age, he can't help but succeed because he's already doing all those right things and putting everything into perspective and preparing properly to do what you got to do when you got to do it.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Luke, put you up next for your what's the most challenging part of striking this balance with all that you do?
Yeah, well, I think Mark provided a really good answer. And one thing that stood out was it's the little details that make the biggest difference, especially when it comes to pursuing officiating. Mark just talked about watching your games on film. Oftentimes, if I work a varsity game, at 7:15 on a Wednesday night, I have to turn around, come home, and go to school the next morning. So one thing that I've started doing this year is my schedules allow me to watch my film during, one of my study hall periods. So that way I can also be learning, in those given times. So I think you got to find ways to really fit those little details in, even if it's just small. Even if I only get to watch 10 minutes at this time, we know what that 10 minutes I can take away from, grow, and then adapt to in my next game or whatever that may be. I think the other thing that I really grown to love when it comes to balance and time management It's, for example, a lot of times when I was starting out, I planned all of our family vacations and trips. One of the biggest things I took away from that was a lot of our friends in the game that umpire professional baseball, whether in the minor league system, the MLB, or different levels. I collect their schedules at the beginning of the year, and I take their schedules and I line them up so we can include baseball, landmarks, sightseeing, and traveling across the country all in one. So I kind of compromised by bringing all those together, and I sit there and I love planning, but it works really well together because we're able to do all four things at one given time. So I feel like because of that, I'm really used to trying to jam as much as possible into one thing, especially if we're in one given city. We're trying to do everything that city has to offer in a 24-hour window. And sometimes that means, even longer, and now you're sacrificing sleep for the next day. So mom always cracks up with me. She's like, you gotta make sure we have time to at least sleep, and she's not wrong. So sometimes I do forget about that, even though I've been doing this trip planning for so long. I think it's trying to find ways to compromise, but also still pursue those things that you love. And I know that sometimes, I said you gotta say no, but when you're able to find that balance in whatever it is, and you're able to apply it successfully, I think you can really establish a successful motto and type of reputation that you continue to apply not only in that given area, but in also areas when it comes to scheduling or when it comes to devoting time towards things. So a lot of it's consistency too for me. Sometimes I like to get in a routine schedule when it comes to school, and then it comes to working those games. And of course, that's going to be ever changing, especially as I going to be graduating high school in the spring, and I'm going to have a new landscape when it comes to college. But I think when you take away and you learn and you're able to keep applying in the future and build that just load of knowledge, and you talk to your mentors in the game that have done it for years. And Kris and Mark are great examples of that, who shared just a little bit earlier some advice when it comes to that. But when I'm able to connect with my mentors and just hear what they have to say and just really listen in and take away from that and apply it to my own life, I really think so many people can benefit, especially youth.
I love that. And I love how efficient you are with your trip planning. Like, how much can we put into one day? That's fantastic. Like, we're going to do it all. We got 24 hours. Let's make the best of it. That's fantastic. You could be a travel agent. I'm going to turn over those duties to you in my life. I love that. So, Kris, we'll have you wrap up on the challenge question. So, what's the most challenging part of this balance equation for you?
Yeah, I was really like, I'm grateful that I went last because I was wrestling with how to answer this. And the guys already mentioned time management can be tough, prioritizing can be tough, balancing your family and friends. I have to be very real and give a real answer. Finances and resources personally have been a challenge for me. I mentioned, I was already married and first child was on the way at the time when I started officiating, and we were not, we didn't have a abundance of money and things of that nature. So I'll tell a little more about my officiating origin story. When I was interested, I had a good friend that had been doing it. Like a mentor, like a big brother. He never recruited me or really asked me to do it, but he was the person I knew that did it. So once I was interested, naturally I went to him. He told me where to register. He told me where to get my gear, and I was excited. Went where he told me, and it was like I ran into a brick wall because it was like $50 to register, $100 for this camp, $200-300 for the uniform and shoes, and you got to travel here to go to this, and I was like, man, I really want to do this, but I can't afford it, truthfully. And kind of back to what we said about knowing when to say no and knowing when you can't do something, I was honest with them. I said, hey, I'm interested, but I just can't do it right now. And he is also a man of faith, a brother in Christ, and he, out of the kindness of his heart, he didn't warn me or tell me, but I received a pair of shoes in the mail, like shortly after our conversation, and a referee shirt. And he said, hey, I hope this can help you, at least get started. And, he actually invested in me, and, was really that was a pivotal moment because I already had that nature of wanting to be the best and be excellent. And by him literally investing in me, it was like, okay, now I really have to like go hard at this because somebody invested in me and I'm investing in myself. And so my officiating journey started really with a financial barrier, to be quite honest with you. And along the way, I mean, Mark mentioned it, as you move up, not only do expectations move up, but the cost moves up substantially because the camps are now a flight away. The camps are now 2 or 3 hotel nights away. You know, you got to buy the college shirt. Now you got to buy the radio, you know. So it was becoming more expensive to chase, you know, to get where I'm at today. And that was challenging because, again, I have a family. I eventually had a second child, you know, like this money needs to go a lot of places. But what helped me overcome that challenge and even overcome it now is that I mentioned earlier, I found my purpose and realized this was a calling and realized that if God called me to this, then he's going to make provision for me. And so there was a lot of examples of me doing things fully on faith where the numbers didn't add up. It didn't make a lot of logical sense at times, but again, the support of my wife, praying wife and a believing wife that prayed together on things. We talked, you know, again, on faith together said, hey, God called you to do this, so just go. We'll figure out this bill. We'll figure out this expense. We'll figure out whatever. And there's a lot of times, I mean, it just truly miracles happen to get me to camps, to get me to this, to get me even to games, honestly, earlier on. And just, I mean, and all of that happened, I know, so that I can talk about it today and for years to come and be a encouragement to others that might be in the shoes I was in where they're like, man, I can't afford this, but I want to do it or I feel led to do it. I'm passionate about it. And hopefully I can encourage people like, especially if you're doing it in faith, doing it as a calling, God will make a way for you. And maybe it's not today, maybe it's not this year. Maybe you do have to wait until the next year, or maybe you have to wait until you save up to go to this big camp you want to go to, or go to this whatever. And that's okay, but just know that there's a way. That know that you're not the only one that has faced those financial challenges in this journey because it is an expensive journey, to be quite honest, and everyone's not in the same financial situation to start out. Obviously, when you're blessed to make it to the higher levels, the compensation also goes up with the expectation and scrutiny. So once you get there, your investment starts to pay off. But on the way there, you know, don't lose hope, don't lose the joy, don't lose the purpose of why you're doing it. And it may not happen right away, but if you just keep fighting, keep enduring, one day you'll make it. You know, you'll be hopefully in a position to then do what my friend did for me and actually invest in somebody else.
Man, thank you for that answer. That was that's incredible because that when you said you're going to be real, that was a real answer because that is one of the most common things that I hear at the NFHS is I really want to do this, but I can't afford it. And that is a reality because there is so much upfront cost that's involved. And the fact that you had somebody who made that investment in you, that's amazing. And that's a story for anybody who's listening. If you're able to make that investment in somebody who needs it, by all means do it because it's when you have somebody who's willing but they have that barrier. We have to, as an officiating community, be able to help. And I really appreciate you sharing that, Kris. That was amazing. So we're at the point in the episode where we're at our final question, and we're going to ask this to all three of you. So the From A to Zebra podcast has a mission every week, and that is to educate, elevate, and excite our listeners. So what can you tell us about officiating that accomplishes this mission? We're going to start with Kris.
Fantastic mission. And that's so amazing that this is not about getting all the calls right, and great mechanics, knowing every rule. That's obviously part of the success of officiating, but you know, educating, elevating, exciting that's a bigger picture that I think we all said it can be translated to life. And what I would say is that officiating absolutely can, the things you learn and the experiences you have and the people you meet and the connections you make can truly like make your life better. I would say, in my opinion, hope my wife agrees and kids and people around me, I feel like I've been a better husband and a better father and a better friend and a better believer and a better minister and a better colleague and everything through my officiating journey. As I became a better official and learned more skills to be better there, I translated all that stuff to the rest of my life. I encourage, that's a big part of Save Our Sports. That's our mission, is like using officiating to become a better person. And whatever you want to make that look like, again, the three of us, a lot of ours is faith-based, faith-centered. We want to be better there, but you may just want to be a better employee or better student or better husband or better wife or better friend or better manage your money better, be in better shape. Whatever your goal is and whatever you want to improve on in life holistically, the officiating journey can definitely help you, because what we learn from the rule book and in games and in the locker room and with crewmates, and we develop friendships and business partners and all these things that we go through can help you in all your life. It's helped me. I'm sure many, many others can attest it's helped them in real life beyond officiating. And if they quit today, you never take away what they learned and the experiences and the friendships. So I would say just let it, officiating can just change your life for the better holistically.
Great answer. Mark Baltz, educate, elevate, excite. What do you have for our listeners?
I'm going to piggyback a little bit on what Kris said, but I'm going to take it one step further. And what we really need in officiating today is more people like Kris Loving and more people like me becoming mentors. Officiating is really dying off as an avocation, and finding the right people, taking these people under your wings rather than trying to worry about yourself and your journey, bring along some other people with you. This is going to be something that Luke can do as well, and hopefully he's already doing it with the excitement that he has for officiating and finding other buddies. I was very fortunate. I came up with a bunch of other young officials. We all aspired to move on. Everybody on my initial high school crew all made it to Division I football. That's kind of unusual back then, and even more so today, because it's a tough thing to do. But our local officials associations, as Dana knows, are really growing weak. The veterans are gone. There's no young people coming up to take over the educational aspect. And as far as educating, be an official that wants to give back and make the officiating avocation better than you found it. And I'll kind of end with the words that I still shed a tear on occasionally, and even more so the last few months since we just recently lost him. But I know Dana is very close friends with Jerry Markbright, a very dear friend of mine and one of my referees in the NFL. But I came on board with the NFL with a guy by the name of Jim Tunney. And Jim was the dean of NFL referees, 31 years in the league. I just passed away in December. I talked to him quite frequently because his words of encouragement to me just made me want to give back just like he was giving back. I got a call from the NFL 1989 that said, welcome to the league. And that's pretty much how cold they really were about it, and hung up. And about a week later, I got a call from Jim Tunney, who said, Mark, Jim Tunney here. I'm going to be your first referee in the National Football League this year. Congratulations. I know you've worked hard to get here. I know the NFL has done the right job and selected the right people. My job as your referee, your crew chief, my 31 years in the NFL, your rookie year, my only job as your referee is to do everything I possibly can to make sure you stay. And those words have echoed with me ever since that phone call back in 1989. And honestly, Jim was a great teacher, a mentor, an educator himself. And I challenge every official in the country today to to, adopt those principles, those lessons. And we've got a great avocation. We can only make it better, but it's going to take people like us on this call to make that happen. And hopefully people that listen to this podcast will take a second to think about, hey, who can I find? Is there somebody else, or is there a kid down the street that's just getting started that needs a little help? Or a guy like Kris who's just getting started that, hey, maybe he needs a little boost. Maybe he needs a pair of shoes. Maybe he needs a shirt. They're out there. They're all over. They're starting in all different ways. Ref Reps is teaching kids from freshman level on up, and the states are taking over after that. But we've just barely scratched the surface. And by partnering with NFHS and all the other things we're doing, all the stuff Dana's doing, all the stuff NASO is doing, the groups are out there and they're there to support us. And it's our duty to give back to those groups wherever they are, whether it's in upcoming officials in your local associations, whether it's groups like NASO. You can't reach out to help Dana. She's doing it all herself. But she's reaching out with podcasts like this that nobody would have thought of that, downtown Indianapolis 15 years ago. But she's got a love of officiating. She came here from New Mexico. She knows a lot of the same people I know and have grown up with. And we're all in this to make it better for everybody. And with all the old timers that we've lost along the way that have sailed off into the sunset, don't be one of those people as you get closer to retirement. And you don't even have to wait till you're ready to retire. Give back, encourage some other people, help them get involved in this great avocation and learn about camaraderie and fellowship. But, my best friends in life are former and current. Well, they're all former to me because I'm not working anymore, but they're all officials. Yeah, I've got some other friends in life from business and all that other stuff, but the ones that really have life meaning to me are the ones that I've developed through sports officiating and all the groups related to it. And boy, I couldn't ask for a better life. And I'm happy to have been part of it and hopefully got a lot of years to continue to give back. So thanks, Dana, for this opportunity and a great podcast. And I know we'll see you down the road. And Kris, hope to see you again soon. And Luke, I hope to meet you someday.
Absolutely. Mark, great answer. Thank you so much for that. And, definitely the friendships are such a big part of this. That officiating family is such a big part of this. And I appreciate you talking about that in the Elevate, Educate, and Excite. So, Luke, we're going to have you close us out. What is your message for Elevate, Educate, and Excite?
Well, my first message is I think being surrounded by people that are passionate, just like Mark and Kris, is one of the biggest things why I have fallen in love with officiating. It's something that I want to continue to pursue. I think with Educate specifically, as a student of the game that has grown up officiating from as long as I can remember in elementary school to where I am now, it's given me that opportunity to be a better leader to my classmates in school, on the sporting teams I'm a part of, and in all my different, whether it's in the church group, whether it's in extracurricular activities, or whatever it may be. It's given me so many different skills that I look forward to using in the future that include balance, that include that teamwork, that includes that situation handling, and all those that you can take away. And there's such a need, and the give back is what I really try to promote, especially here in Pennsylvania with our junior officials program. There's no better opportunity for our high school students to give back to their community, to do something that's bigger than themselves, and just share how, sports has impacted them in such a vast way. And I think that, with officiating, anyone of any age can have that experience of what officiating is truly like, whether that's on the floor or off the floor. And it goes right into elevate. You're elevating yourself as a person. Kris talked about you're elevating yourself to the people that are around you. You're becoming a better person. You're elevating your community. You're elevating this game for the student athletes, for those around you. And you're also connecting. You're building those memories, those relationships, that network with people that come from such vast backgrounds. Myself, my family have benefited so much from networking with officials from all across the country. And that's taken us on these trips where we never thought possible to see our friends umpire and to be part of not only our journey but their journey and to build that bridge between and just share the love of the game. And I think it goes right into excite, right? So we're finding a way to become excited with other people that enjoy it. I've been able to be part of the Care charity organization, and that's fuel. You get to see how our officiating it feels so small compared to the bigger message and the impact that we can have. It's exciting to see how those students that we officiate for, how much their passion shows during those games and high intense moments. And I think that's exciting for me to see my community and my family be so excited for me in this path I'm pursuing, especially when it's different. It's not typical, but to have their support, I want to make them proud and I want to leave a positive difference on those around me, whether it's on or off the court. So I think just to continue to pursue it, it's just so exciting. Every time I get to put on the stripes, I get to go out on that baseball field. I know that I'm just going to be able to go out there and do something I love. That's something I hope I can continue to do for many years to come. So I think that covers it. And just to give a shout out to my parents, mom, Christy, dad, Jared, my younger brother, Lee, and my grandparents, Betty and Clayton, and Barb and Anthony for their support. I know they're watching. They'll be tuning into this episode. So very grateful for them, especially my mom, Christy, for all the financial support she's given me through the years to get to where I am today.
I love that. Thank you for I love that for doing that, and thanks for giving a shout out to your mom. I'm sure she's super proud of you, and she obviously has bought in with everything you've done. So that's awesome. This has been a really special episode, gentlemen. Thank you so much for your time and for everything that you bring to officiating. When I talk to people, I always tell them that the best people I know in the world are officials, and the three of you are such amazing representatives of that. This is one of those episodes where my heart just feels full, and it just makes me want to work harder for officials because the three of you are outstanding representatives of this profession, avocation, whatever it is you want to call it. And really honored to have the three of you in my officiating family, because once I know you're in my officiating family, whether you want to be or not. So there's that. But thank you, Mark Baltz, Luke Bowers, Kris Loving. Thank you for your time. Thank you for what you do for officiating and for being on the From A to Zebra podcast. So I thank our listeners for joining us on the From A to Zebra podcast. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and X for more information about the show. Until next time.
Be sure to hit that like button, follow, subscribe, and also catch From A to Zebra on Instagram at from_A_2_zebra, Facebook From A to Zebra podcast, and on X at From A to Zebra.